You're listening to Notch 6 at the LCCA National Convention from Boston, Massachusetts. You can find all the news and interviews from this convention at notch6.com. The following is a production of Notch 6 Media.
It's the Notch 6 online podcast, episode number 61. In this episode, Mike Reagan from Lionel Trains Incorporated joins me to talk about all of the little but significant improvements Lionel is working to make on accessories, power, and so much more. You'll get some exclusive details on the upgrades being made to the soon arriving Station Sounds diners and more. Plus, the Wednesday recap from the LCCA National Convention in Boston, Massachusetts. It's all ahead on this episode of Notch 6.
This is the Notch 6 online podcast. Notch 6 is the podcast dedicated to O-gauge trains. Whether you're collecting, operating, or just getting started, Notch 6 is your home for O-gauge news, events, and interviews. Now here is your host, Derek Thomas.
Well, welcome into another episode of Notch 6, live from the Doubletree Hilton Hotel in Danvers, Massachusetts, just a stone's throw away from the wonderful city of Boston. Each and every episode of Notch 6 brought to you by your friends at Trains.com. Have you reached the end of the line with your collection and you need to sell? Give Trains a call or get a hold of them on their website. That's trainz.com. Thanks to Trains for sponsoring the show. Proud to welcome in again for the fourth night of this wonderful convention, Al Colas. Al, welcome back. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Derek. Good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Yes, it has been a busy day here at the convention already, and sleep deprivation is starting to set in for you, although, you were telling me you made it to bed at the reasonable hour of 1:30 this morning. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's the earliest it's been all week long, so, yep.
We joke every convention about sleep deprivation, and we have talked a lot this week about this is a chance to see your friends, to connect with the core enthusiasts in the hobby. And, this is a chance where people just break out of the mold and they stay up to hours that they're not used to. They go out with friends, they talk trains, and it's a great excuse to get outside of the normal routine.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, I don't know how to say it other than it's just fun. It's good, genuine fun. Trains, planes, automobiles, American history, good people, good food. The environment is set, but the people really make the party. And
absolutely.
It's a big party. It's a week-long party.
It's neat because walking around in the lobby today, you see the orange registration bags floating around as people kind of are making their way in as the convention really starts to kick into high gear. And it's just neat because you can stop somebody with one of those bags and you're going to have an instant connection to that person that you can talk to them about.
And Derek, last night we opened up our store where we had different Lionel products for sale, LCCA limited edition products for sale. And people were lined up out the door, around the corner, and then they get into the store, and it was just a feeding frenzy. It was just incredible. People are trying to get the deals, and it was like going to Disney World or something.
I tell you what, the LCCA does a great job all year of being involved in events where there is a lot of value to be had in terms of Lionel products. Not only the warehouse sales, but the events here. Your tables at York always have some incredible deals. The LCCA really goes out of its way to bring value to its members, and not only in the product that the club delivers in terms of special product, but you guys are able to pull up some really incredible deals in terms of normal run-of-the-mill Lionel product that other people just aren't getting.
Well, that's something we're very proud of, Derek. We have a great relationship with Lionel. Lionel is part of our name. It's part of our heritage. It's our purpose. Our purpose is to promote and foster an interest in Lionel trains. And so, as you know, last year we made the announcements where we merged the Lionel Railroader Club with the LCCA. So now we are Lionel's club of choice. We are truly partners. Lionel has brought their massive layout, operating layouts and display. They're set up. They have all their display boards. They're here celebrating their 115th year. We're here celebrating our 45th year. As a gift, every conventioner received a special watch made by Lionel commemorating the LCCA 45th anniversary. That was a total surprise to our members, and it was a great gift from Lionel. Lionel didn't have to do that, but that's something they want to show their appreciation to our members and our families, and it's just another sign of their commitment to us.
These events really are cool, and I'll admit the watch was a total surprise, and thumbing through the bag, and there's so many goodies tucked inside that registration bag, and that almost makes it worth it right there. You know, it's amazing for the price of registering for the convention, which is around the $60 mark. You get a lot of bang for your buck.
You receive the Lionel trolley. That in itself is worth more than $60.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. You know, one of the things that we get to talk about every year, and one of the hallmarks of these conventions, is reaching out to the community that we happen to be staying in. This morning was another great example, and this is something that every convention that we've covered with you, and it's something that I know is really, really important to you, is bringing folks in from the local Make-A-Wish Foundation. Tell me how that went this morning and what the reaction was.
Well, Derek, we had a great time. We had like the grand opening of the Lionel operating layout and display. And what we do is we work with the local Make-A-Wish Foundation. We find a child that has an interest in trains. And this year, Matthew, age 10, has an interest in trains. And he came in and he was designated the honorary engineer for the day. And Matt also has a love for Thomas. So he was just bouncing off the walls. Lionel has their Thomas set running. He just wouldn't let it go. But Lionel's been very generous. We were able to give Matt a free Lionel Thomas the train set with the Lion Chief controller. And Matthew was just tickled pink. And he has a brother, Joseph, who was with him. And he was designated the honorary conductor for the day. So we had a couple hundred people down here. It was very exciting. Matthew was truly touched, and his whole family was here. They were very surprised, very grateful, and it was just neat to see the innocence and the passion for the trains. And we were able to introduce them to Lionel trains, and it was just a good win-win situation for everybody involved. And so we pride ourselves in being more than just a train club. We're more than just consumption and collecting and things like that. We try to put something back into society. I call it the magic of Lionel trains. And that's something, it's kind of hard to describe, but I know when I feel it and I see it and I hear it, and that happened this morning.
That's going to be one of our themes as we go into the back half of this week, especially as we start talking to the folks that make Lionel tick from the inside, as we're bringing in Mike Reagan tonight, and we'll talk with Howard Hitchcock later in the week and a few other folks from Lionel. But it's been 115 years of creating smiles, and not only the smiles on the faces of the adults who are the hardcore and the heart and soul of this hobby, but it's creating smiles on the faces of these kids that are brand new to the hobby, that may, just, they know what a toy train is, but they've never gotten to experience Lionel, the magic of Lionel. And so it's been 115 years of creating smiles, and we're going to talk quite a bit about that as we move into the back half of the week. And I think, when you have events like we have this morning with the local Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we've talked about this every year, it's about giving back. And, not only are these kids excited, but and we've talked about this quite a bit in the past, it makes you feel good too. It's great to see our hobby go out and do something good for the community.
And when you look at Lionel's displays, it really has something for 3 generations of people. We have the traditional transformer control engines. We have the Lion Chief sets running on the floor for the younger kids. We have the little lines. And then we have the legacy controllers. So Lionel's great at encouraging people to play with it, interact with it. It's not something to be afraid of. And they give the remote control unit to the child and to the father and the mother. And they all are running trains at different times of the day. And so they do a really nice job of making it hands-on, relevant, not don't touch, that's never going to get people interested in a hobby, and Lionel's team is doing a phenomenal job with that.
Let's talk about what the members went out and did today, because we've got to recap the day's tour. So what was the LCCA out and active in today?
Oh, we had a bewitching day in Salem. So that's kind of part of the local history here. And then we had another train ride. We had a cog railroad excursion up to the top of Mount Washington. So believe it or not, it was probably 80 degrees here, but I believe it was quite chilly at the top of the mountain. It's over 6,000 square feet high. It's very picturesque and scenic. So our members had another opportunity to experience another train ride in this part of the country. We wouldn't have that opportunity if it wasn't for our convention being held in a different city. This is our first time that we've been in this northeast New England area.
Yeah, and that's amazing when you think about, how many places in the United States the LCCA convention has yet to travel. And, here we are, 45th anniversary, and we're still seeing amazing cities like Boston. It's not like we're in Dubuque, Iowa or something like that. I mean, we are in...
Something against Dubuque, Iowa?
That was just the first city that came to my mind. And if I offended any of our listeners in Dubuque, I apologize profusely. But... we're still out seeing these great historical cities in the United States, and there's still a lot more ground to cover.
And this is such great American history. This is our heritage. This is where we came from. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. What do we have on tap for this evening? Because we're getting ready. It's mid-afternoon here, and so things are getting ready to ramp up for the evening. I think the store opens here pretty quick, and then what do we have going on later tonight?
Well, we have a first-timers reception. And it's something that we started a few years back, and it's a welcome to first-time attendees to our convention, and it gives them an opportunity to meet with our leadership team, our volunteer leadership team. It's a fun event. Sometimes we think that it can be kind of intimidating coming into a convention, and everybody started at one time. Everybody went to their first convention, and it's something that when you go for years, my kids have been going since 1995, you kind of forget that. So we go out of our way to welcome the first time LCCA conventioneers. And it sets the tone and it gives them a chance to meet with us. We're not just some distant people. We are a club together, and that's what's nice. In addition to that, we started doing what we call clinics and seminars. As you know, the tours are typically there's costs associated with them because there's air-conditioned bus transportation, tour guides. There's a cost associated with that. So this is our attempt to give our members something free. We appreciate them coming here, spending their money, signing up for all these tours. So we have two great clinics tonight, seminars. Okay, so Sharon Kempfer is giving a talk, and other people are contributing to their story and sharing their stories of their interest in trains, and that's what it's all about. It's all railroading is model railroading is a personal experience. There's no wrong way to enjoy the hobby. Where you enjoy it may be different than I, and that's what's great about our hobby. There's no wrong way to enjoy it. And then we have a very popular clinic tonight conducted by Ed Boyle from OGR, and he is going to be giving a talk about how technology affects the value of toy trains. And that's been a topic on the OGR forum board that's been pretty popular. I think last time I checked, it had over 2,200 hits.
Yeah.
So it's a topic of interest, I think, and it's relevant to our hobbyists. So that's what we like to be. We like to be part of the hobby. We like to drive the hobby into the future. And we want to be part of that. And OGR is part of it. Notch 6 Podcast is part of it. And the LCCA is part of it. And that's something we're very proud of.
And I like how the two seminars tonight cover such opposite ends of the spectrum. You're talking about how we share and bring new people in, and then on the backside of that, looking at the longevity of the hobby in terms of, the technology and the trains and how do they affect the value of the trains. And Ed was on the podcast on Sunday night, so if you haven't heard that episode yet, go back and listen to, I think it would be episode 58 with Ed. And it's really an interesting discussion that can take a lot of different forms. And so, Ed's presentation tonight is going to go a lot deeper than we were able to go on the podcast. But it's an interesting topic that I don't feel has gotten a lot of discussion. But, hopefully, starting the discussion here at this convention, and I have a feeling this is a topic that's going to get discussed at some length here as we move through the next year or two, not only in the LCCA, but out in the OGR world and some other places. And it is a relevant topic. So neat to see that polarizing of the topics tonight for the seminar.
Well, and I think an interesting part of this hobby is, and something that we do, we put a lot of emphasis on, this is a family-oriented club and experience. And we try to have something for every member in the family. Again, we know as you're married, if your wife's not happy, you're not happy. So we try to have something for everyone. And I think that's something that might be overlooked as well as when you look at the hobby moving forward. How do we get younger people involved? What do we need to do? And the hobby, with children, there has to be a family involvement. There has to be a family support, financially, emotionally, and they have to be, the parents have to be willing to support their child's interest in the hobby, in Lionel toy trains. So I think that family plays a key part in the long-term success of this hobby. And we recognize that, and we're promoting it, and we want to be part of that.
I think that's a good place to leave it for tonight. You've been listening to Al Colas, back again for another day here in Boston. Al, we will talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Derek, and please try to get some sleep tonight at a reasonable hour.
I don't think I'm the one having the problem staying up late. We'll see you tomorrow, Al.
Thank you.
Before tonight's feature interview, I want to take just a moment and let you know about a special deal we have from the Madison Poster Company in honor of the LCCA National Convention. Head on over to our website, madisonposter.com, and there you're going to find the only reproduction of Lionel dealer posters in the entire world. And these posters are pretty outstanding, if I do say so myself. These are the big giant murals you remember seeing in the department stores as a kid growing up, those ones that hung behind Lionel's amazing display layouts. Anyhow, head on over to madisonposter.com, use the keyword Boston at checkout, and for a limited time, we'll pick up the shipping on your poster. That's madisonposter.com and the keyword Boston for free shipping until August 7th, 2015.
You're listening to Notch 6 at the LCCA National Convention from Boston, Massachusetts. You can find all the news and interviews from this convention at notch6.com.
Well, welcome back to Notch 6. Again, it's Wednesday evening, night 4 here at the LCCA National Convention. One of the hallmarks as we get later in the week every year is to start bringing in the folks from Lionel, and this is our opportunity to really get some face time. With York every year, these guys are pulled about 200 different directions, and that's one of the advantages of the conventions is if you come, you can corner some of these folks and harass them all by your lonesome and not have any issues. So tonight, I get the pleasure of harassing or interviewing your favorite guy and mine, Mike Reagan. Mike, welcome back to the show. It hasn't been long enough.
True that. How you doing, Derek?
I'm good. It's good to have you back on the show. I like this chance to catch up with you during the summer because we kind of get to let things simmer down a little bit. It's not York. It's not catalog time. This is the chance where we really get to dive into some of, I guess, the less known but still very important items that are going on within production, some things that folks might not even notice. One area that I've heard folks feel like has been neglected the last few years is accessories, but in reality, the accessories at Lionel are going through some small but important changes. Let's talk about what's going on in accessories for a few minutes. One of the things that I noticed when I came down and visited you about 2 months ago in Concord is there are a lot of functional upgrades being made to accessories that make them better than their post-war counterparts. Walk me through some of the upgrades that you guys are making to these classic accessories and why take the time to do it.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we try to do, put our hands on post-war accessories and basically run them through their paces. So you've got AC motors, you've got vibratory motors, you've got solenoids, you've got things that make a substantial amount of noise. And when they were made originally, that was the materials and the methodology that they used to produce them back then. And while they really did some cool things, they were just loud. It's just the way it worked. So we try and keep the persona of what the accessory itself does, but try to do it more efficiently, right? So give you an example. We're going to put, let's just say it's a culvert loader and unloader, right? If we took culvert loader and unloader and put the vibratory motor in there, so that it, through a series of FM and gravity, made the arm roll out and down, then grab the culvert, come back. That thing's shaking like crazy for starters. But more importantly, if you look at the amperage requirements on something like that, I mean, there's a lot of noise. B, there's a lot of amperage. Amperage, requires a lot of power. If you try to run it at a constant voltage, you've got wattage you got to burn off. That's heat. There's all these things that go on electronically behind the scenes that make that approach really not ideal. So we look at those things and we say, okay, can we use a CAN motor? Okay, we can use a CAN motor, but it's got 5,700 RPM. So if you can find me a culvert loader unloader that will work reliably with a 5,700 RPM motor, I would be impressed. So you can't do that. Can we put a gear head on it, gear reduction, rack and pinion, whatever, whatever the mechanics are that goes into it to make it work on a lower voltage requirement. So like our culvert loader and unloader, it's got a CAN motor, it's got a gear reduction head on it, runs slow, it whines a little bit, but in comparison to the original post-war piece, it's probably several million decibels lower in volume. And that 5-volt motor might pull half an amp or less. Well, that's great. That way we can put the electronics in there, use modern appliances like limit switches, cherry switches, Hall effect sensors, things of that nature that are readily available today. Just try and go out and procure some components to make a vibrator motor. You need 21 cold rolled steel, you need stamping, you need a certain number of turns on the coil. These are all things that are labor intensive on the production line as opposed to buying off the shelf components. So, we test the post-war product, we design the new product, or I should say we upgrade the new product to be compatible with today's appliances, CAN motors, switches, Hall effect sensors, IR receivers, things of that nature. Another example is the 497 coaling tower. So we've reproduced that, I think one time, modern era, and they basically built a carbon copy of it. Sans, they took the pull-more motor out that pulled the tray up, and they replaced it with the gearbox from that's similar to like the 282 gantry crane or the sawmill, with the CAN motor and the big worm wheel or worm gear. Even that production had issues, right? It relied on the operator to release the lever so that you didn't overwind the pulley and then strip the gear out when you got the dump into the top. And then when you went the other way, you go all the way to the bottom, and if you don't release it, suddenly down becomes up and up becomes down. So there were issues there. So we improved that, right? We put a pretty slick little piece of all thread in there with a little lever on it that runs it up. It hits a cherry switch and it stops, and then automatically reverses on its own to go down. Even though you're pushing in the up position, the electronics take over, and so you have reliable operation on the dump bin. The coil that operates the drop bottom on the two hoppers, that was basically copied from the post-war design verbatim. So we've taken that out completely. We put a servo motor in there, and it's pretty slick because instead of now, with that, you required a certain amount of high voltage to make that coil work, and then when you would hit the dump button, that coil would slap, and it would, not only drop coal into your hopper, but all over the accessory and the track as well. So, now the servo motor, it's literally bzz, and drops it down. All the coal falls into the hopper below or the dump car below, and you release it, and it's bzz, and it's done. It's quiet, it's efficient, it draws low current, very precise piece, And you can buy these things off the shelf just like they do in the remote control car world. So servos are just, all over the place. They're in doggone, darn near every type of medical appliance you buy. It's got a servo motor in it, or remote control car, or whatever.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's just a matter of, it really boils down to taking the original and putting it out, playing with it, as it was originally designed, adapting that to modern appliances, if you will, working the kinks out of it, putting it to a point where you can make it manufacturable and repeatable, where it doesn't require a lot of fine tuning and adjustment. A lot of times you're working with stamp parts that, once you make that tool, it's going to stamp it exactly the same every time. You don't really want to have to sit there with a pair of pliers on the production line in 3,000 degree factory making minor adjustments to the track. You just want to put it together, wire it up, push the button, watch it work, confirm it works, put it in the box, get it over here.
Something I hear, and it seems to be a real key point in the modification of these accessories, is the battle for lower amperage. And this has come up in a lot of the Lionel production line, and it seems it's something that your department in production is really focused on, whether it's in accessories or whether it's LEDs in passenger cars. You guys are really fighting to get the amperage draw to be as low as possible. Is that something that you guys are conscious of as you guys make these design changes?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is based off power when it comes right down to it. I tell people in service, especially when we get new technicians or customer service reps or really anybody that we talk to or that we're training, when you get a new person in that doesn't quite understand electricity, the very first thing I teach them is amperage is king. You can have a post-war ZW. I just had this conversation this morning with a member here. He's bragging up about how great his 275 watt post-war ZW is. It's the best transformer in the world, on and on and on. Like, really? So how many amps does that 275 watt transformer have? I asked him. He's like, oh, more amps than I'll ever use. Uh-huh. Let's do the math. 275 divided by 20, because a post-war ZW will put out 20 volts. Divide that by 20, and we divide that by 4 because you have 4 handles. Well, guess what? You have 3.43 amps per handle on a post-war ZW. 3.43 amps. You buy a modern ZWL, you got 10 amps per 3 channels and 6 amps on the 4th. And it's load balancing. So if you're pulling 10 on A, B, and D, C has 6 available. But I challenge you to find someone who's actually pulling 10 amps at continuous load on every channel of their transformer today. There's, I would say, 2 people that I would put my money on are probably at 8.5 amps continuous load, and no one else even comes close. Bob Weaver is one of them, because he runs 90 to 95 car trains with 4 to 6 pieces of dual motor equipment in the front end.
That's incredible. And it's cool to see, and we've talked a lot about the technology in other shows this week, but it's cool to see the power technology, especially with the ZWL, now that it's been on the market for a few years now. But to hear you actually spit out some physical numbers in terms of, the post-war ZW, which was, the king for so long, and suddenly, you've got the ZWL on the street and active, and to hear just how much more superior the L is to the post-war ZW is really pretty shocking, the difference in the numbers between just the amperage. And so many people have been hesitant to embrace some of the technology that has come into the trains in the last few years, but really it's really there to design to make the operating characteristics of these trains a lot better.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't want to not cover the question that you asked originally, but I'll give you a great example of that. So American Flyer guys, right, S-gauge guys. You ask any S-gauge guy what the best transformer in the world is, they're going to tell you it's a 30B. 30B transformer, the best transformer ever. Newsflash, not so much. A 30B is a smooth sine wave. I don't honestly know what the amperage capacity is. I haven't done the math, but just the smooth sine wave itself. When guys call up customer service and I've got my American Flyer engine and it doesn't smoke for squat and blah, 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 blah. Okay, let me guess, you're using a 30B. How did you know? It's almost like I read your mind. You know, you take that smooth sine wave transformer out of the equation, you put a chopped sine wave transformer in there, and it can be a CW80, right? A starter set transformer. Put a CW80 in there, and that chopped sine wave versus the smooth wave, and that American Flyer engine is smoking so much that they have to turn it off because it smokes too much. You know, people don't take the time to understand power, and that's why I said amperage is king. You know, we're the only company in the industry at this point who are making 10 amp power, anything, you know, whether it be a ZWL, it be the 180 watt powerhouse bricks, you know, the GW180s. We're the only people out there making a true 10 amp transformer. Right of Way did it years ago with the 2020, right? It was a 20 amp transformer. And unbeknownst to most everybody in the industry, except maybe Benson and Lou Niederlander and myself, I think the three of us are the only ones who know how they got around the UL listing for a transformer of 20 amps back in the day. But outside of the Right of Way 2020, there's Lionel Power is 10 amps. And then you couple that with that new 360 watt Power Master we're coming out with later this year. That's 20 amps of power. You know, or if you've got two 135 bricks, you plug those in, you got 15 amps of power. So amperage is king. But, you know, to answer your original question, are we cognizant of our accessories and the amperage draw? Absolutely. You know, especially now in the world of Lion Chief, where we've got the plug and play technology, right? The whole mantra is that you take your accessory and you plug it into the track, and you're taking amperage away from the actual train, which is, in my professional opinion, is a bad idea, but this is the direction we've decided to go. So at some point, a new user who starts with Lion Chief and does the plug and play direction is eventually going to run out of power, because that wall transformer that comes in the starter set is, you know, 1.3, 1.4 amps. It's not much. It's enough to run the train, run a few street lamps, and, you know, you put an auto gate man on it or an uncoupling track, you're done. As soon as you fire your uncoupling track, or as soon as your gate man tries to come out of the shack, the amperage draw exceeds what the transformer has, you're finished. You know, now you've got to go get CW80, something bigger than 1.3 amp. So, you know, like our recent floodlight towers? Yeah, the floodlight towers, the 8 lamp and 16 lamp LED, or 8 and 16 lamp floodlight towers. I don't know if you've seen one yet actually operate. We changed out the incandescent lamps to high intensity white LEDs. Literally, if you stare at this thing for longer than a second, you see dots. It's awesome. You know, you put that on a layout, and the night and day difference between the incandescent version and the LED version. I mean, you know, one double floodlight tower will light up your entire yard. It's awesome with all the lights off in the room. And the total amperage draw on that thing is like, I don't even think it's a third of an amp, you know, and it's the brightest thing on the layout. So, you know, yeah, we're aware of it. We're constantly trying to improve it. Sometimes tooling ultimately makes the decision. If the tooling costs are significant enough that, you know, okay, I need to change this from an incandescent to an LED, so I got to change this mounting bracket, etc. But the tooling cost is so high and it just doesn't make financial sense, we won't do it. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, that's typically not the case. You know, so we can adapt LEDs to accessories and improve the performance, lower the amperage. This way you can run more with less power, and that's always a plus.
I think it's kind of neat to hear about how plug and play accessories and the requirements and the necessity of plug and play accessories functioning in a certain way and only requiring, you know, a certain amount of power is actually trickling its way up to some of the higher end things, because, you know, in order for this plug and play stuff to work reliably for a new user, it also is providing advantages to the experienced user, just like what you're saying with the floodlight tower. You know, because we want this stuff to work well with the plug and play stuff, you know, we're getting a better floodlight tower. We're getting a floodlight tower that you only have to buy, let's say, 4 floodlight towers to illuminate a huge section of the layout, as opposed to 8-10 years ago, because of the bulb type. And, you know, I can see that as a real advantage for some of us who are like, well, what does this lower end starter stuff really do for us? Well, that lower end starter stuff is changing the way your higher end stuff works for the better, and I hope people can see that as these changes come into the product line. And if they can't see it, we're here to tell you about it.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, There's a lot of things like that. I mean, you know, like American Flyer guys, one of the things to your point, right? Anytime that we make improvements to a product, right? Nobody likes to admit when they're wrong, and nobody really likes to advertise, you know, oh yeah, I'm aware that we screwed up, you know, look at us. No one really likes to talk about that. So, you know, typically what we do historically at Lionel is, okay, we have identified a problem, whatever it is, and we'll correct it, and that correction happens behind the scenes, and the next product that comes down the pike is corrected, right? It's got whatever the fix is. You know, great case in point was American Flyer operating cars, dump cars, log dump cars, coal dump cars, whatever. We had a design for an American Flyer truck that literally the truck fell apart in shipping in the box. Like, you didn't have to physically touch it, you just had to give it to UPS. And Derek, you've shipped enough things UPS, you know what UPS stands for, right? Your package smashed. They would take care of it, and you'd get it, and you'd have 4 side frames, 4 axles, and your operating dump car. Well, you know, through no fault of manufacturing, I guess at the end of the day, it was a manufacturing defect, if you will, or flaw in the design. So that truck has been improved. You know, the side frames are screwed to the bolster like they are in all the freight cars, much more robust. You know, we stood in North Carolina, we've taken dump cars and we've thrown them across the room and they bounce off the floor. And I guess I probably shouldn't be saying this on this kind of podcast, but yeah, don't, whatever you do, folks, don't do that at home. But leave it to us. We have the parts to fix it. You know, we throw it across the room, pick it up, and you might have to bend some metal back in place, but the truck itself stays intact and doesn't come apart. So, you know, to my point, there's always constant improvements being made. Unfortunately, these improvements are made after it goes to catalog, and in some instances after it's been produced one time. But there's always improvements being made to the product. Stuff that happens behind the scenes that we really don't tout and really don't talk about, but it occurs every day. And you know, at the end of the day, how do you find it before you make it? You test it. You just test the snot out of it. That's about the only part of my job where it rings true when people say, "Oh, you get paid to play with trains." Technically, yes. But what I'm doing is not necessarily for enjoyment purposes.
You're trying to find every possible thing that could go wrong with this train before it ever hits an orange and blue box, and that is something that I know you being you are passionate about making sure that this stuff is right before it goes out the door, and anybody who knows you knows that you're passionate about that. You know, one of the themes of this interview is becoming power, and one of those things I keep hearing is how powerhouses have become so scarce on the market. We've talked about this a little bit earlier this year. You guys have a solution for that. Tell me what's going on and how close we are to some answers.
Powerhouses probably will be seen in the marketplace in early 16. That transformer was originally designed by a vendor offshore. They're the ones that acquired the UL listing for us. They folded up, went out of business, and took the design with them. So when it came time for us to go and make them again, we just didn't have much to go on from the original design documentation. You know, some of the coil windings changed, whole number of variables. Bottom line is we've got a transformer core now that we're very confident in. We're starting the UL approval process. That should take probably about 3 months. Once we get through that and get our UL certification, we'll be putting those into production and delivering them again. Good part is it's got a new improved circuit breaker. So I don't know if Derek, if you've ever run powerhouses with something like a direct lock-on, but you know, your direct lock-on would throw, the green LEDs would go red and the circuit breaker on your powerhouse would pop. Well, it's not supposed to happen that way, right? The powerhouse is supposed to stay on, and the direct lock-on does the circuit breaker protection. But the original 180s were so sensitive that they would pop right away. So the newer ones are a little less sensitive in that regard. Not in any way, shape, or form that it degrades their performance. It's just that, you know, like when you use it with a 360-watt PowerMaster, the PowerMaster has the fold-back technology in it to remove the voltage when there's a short. You don't have to continually climb underneath the table, reset the circuit breaker. the Power Master actually turns the power back on, reapplies it to the track, and the breaker in the 180 doesn't trip. So unfortunately, we were in a precarious situation with the vendor folding up and not being very cooperative about giving us information, and just basically had to start all over again. But the good side of it is we did all the work ourselves. We have all the information, and if whatever vendor we're using in the future goes belly up, we'll just take our information and go elsewhere, have it made. So they're coming. Just be patient with us. I mean, if you got to have 10 amps right now, right this minute, ZWLs are in stock. Get them while they're hot. And the ZWL, for all intents and purposes, it's a conventional transformer. It's a wireless command control transformer. It basically has 4 Power Masters built into it. So it does everything a Power Master, Legacy Power Master, and Powerhouse combo would do anyway. And it looks cooler because it has lit gauges.
One of the things that I think about as we sit here and talk, and we talked about this before we went on the air, is you and I were coming up with what we needed to talk about. But the nice thing in terms of production, it's the lack of things to talk about. Normally we're talking about things that are running late or things that are really far behind in the design process, and you and I are we're running out of things to talk about, and that's really, really, really nice. And that's got to feel good for you guys that the ship is getting to the point where your eyes are down the road now, and you guys are looking so far ahead. And I've seen the list of where you guys are at, kind of, in terms of things being planned for 16, planned for 17. And instead of your eyes being in the rear view mirror trying to figure out, okay, how do we get this to catch up with the rest of the car? It's like, no. We're far enough down the road now that we can focus on these things instead of trying to play catch up. That's got to feel good.
Oh yeah, it's a good feeling. Of course, it really doesn't bode well for you and having things to talk about. But
I rather not have to do an interview with you, or we're trying to figure out why something is 2 years late, and I rather just not do the interview. But that's good. That's not the topic of conversation. And and like I said, it's good, I guess, having a lack of news to talk about. Something else though that I did want to hit on, and we have talked about this in the catalog show, but I think it's worth bringing up again now that they're starting to arrive, are the Station Sounds cars. It's good to see those cars back. You were very excited about talking about those cars when we did the catalog show earlier this year. Now that the Station Sounds cars are actually starting to hit the streets with the Neil Young sets. Well, not the Neil Young sets, but those cars are not that far off on the horizon. Now that there's some more solid details, tell me what you can about the cars. What's going to make these different than the last go around?
Okay. Well, the good news is I've got a Texas Special Station Sounds car down on the layout here at the convention, along with its matching baggage car. So I've got the full 6-car set, and the engine's down on the layout running. The Station Sounds cars for Texas Special probably won't be here until the end of August, first week of September. They're currently on the water. They were just shipped recently. But one of the things in the development process for Station Sound cars, and the reason that it took so long to bring them to market, was the amount of work that goes on in the back end with the technology. When we did them with TMCC1, it was pretty simple. Anybody who has a Trainmaster 1 engine knows that when you hit aux 1.7, there's a delay, and then the tower comm plays. And when you hit aux 1.2, you get immediate chatter out of the locomotive, and then that's it. So timing for a Station Sounds dyner with TMCC1 was pretty simple. That protocol was very easy. Well, then you bring you up to the legacy scenario where you hit aux 1.7, boom, you immediately get tower, you get locomotive, and then sometimes you get tower again, do crew talk, you get locomotive, tower, and locomotive. So the timing there becomes a little bit more tricky. So, Rudy out in California, our sound engineer, did a fantastic job going through and working with all of those various dialogues that have been in legacy locomotives from basically, December of 2007 up through present. And, that's four iterations of soundboards, from Rail Sounds 5.5 to 6 to RSL2 and RSL3. A lot of iterations of technology to get through. Well, in order to make it work, you need updated cab and bass software on your cab and bass. Now these station sound diners have a track IR sensor. So they go over your sensor track and they feed data back to your cab, into LCS, etc. Without the software update, it comes through and it turns your cab into freight sounds. So instead of having a passenger car icon for train link and having touchpad icons for station sounds cars, it all flips over. It would all flip over to a freight sound car. And you have to go into the engine menu and change, a big pain in the butt. So one of the things that we did is we're putting blue 1.6 cab and base modules in the box with the station sound diner, so that anybody who buys it, it's got a legacy set, can up-rev their cab and base, so immediate gratification out of the box. The other thing that they need to do is that when you put a station sound car into a train, you need to use train link, which is something that you access through the train builder when you're building a lash up. And the reason for this is you're using legacy, and let's say your locomotives are engine 1 and your station sound diner is engine 2. You go engine 1, you're running your train, you get it running, you slow it down, you stop it in the station, you hit engine 2. What's the first thing you have to hit to get to your announcement icon? You got to hit the AUX1 key. Well, as soon as you hit AUX1, it shades the tower comm icon. So when you hit it, it says the Texas Special is now boarding. Well, how could it possibly be boarding? It just arrived. So when you use it in the train link scenario, you're addressing the whole train as TR, so TR1. You hit the train link button, hit the soft key underneath the passenger car icon. The touchpad opens up automatically. You hit the tower comm icon, and it says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Texas Special has now arrived." Then you hit 2. It says, tickets please, all aboard. Hit 7 again, it says Texas Special's departing. You hit train link to go back to run your train, turn the throttle, your locomotives move out, you get squealing flanges and clickety-clack sounds, and the scenario's played out better. You couldn't do any of that with 1.54 or 1.52. You can really only do that with 1.6. So that's why we put the modules in the box with the Station Sounds Diner, and it's pretty slick. The sound effects are neat. There's three different announcements for 3 different seatings in the dining car. It says, what does it say? Cold beer, soft drinks, and cocktails are now being served in the lounge car. Snacks. It's pretty slick. And it basically allows the operator to take the train through an entire scenario. Well, you're doing all this through your cab, your legacy remote, and you have a sensor track. You can record all this. So you do it one time perfectly and just hit the playback button. Now your train makes these sounds all the time. So it's pretty slick. A lot of cool announcements. Rudy did a super job on the sounds. Some of the announcements are cool. There are times, though, that I think that the lady in the Texas Special car sounds a lot like Marge, the operator from Monsters Incorporated. She's kind of got that raspy voice. It's really kind of scary.
I've heard the rumor mill say the other thing that you guys are working on is just like the coal and the water and the steam locomotives, that with the Station Sounds Diner, the hungrier the passengers get, the more aggravated they get, and if you let them go too long, the passengers riot and the whole train shuts down.
I don't know about that one. I don't know. If anybody experiences that, don't call customer service. I really don't know how to fix that, other than feed the passengers.
Anything else that I've missed that you want to cover while you're here? Like I said, it's not a busy catalog for us, but I dare I say that I have some inklings of what might be coming down the pipeline, and we're going to have a ton to talk about this fall. But before we wrap this thing up, anything that I've missed that is worth delving into real quick?
For those interested, the American Flyer Polar Express passenger set is downstairs running. Everybody will be happy to know that it will be out this year. And I'm even happier to tell you that it'll be out this year instead of last year, because had you got it last year, I would have them all ultimately. So got all the kinks worked out of that. It's working really, really well. In fact, it's taken 3 nosedives off that high line on the 8x12 layout down there. It's hit the floor 3 times. Pick it up, put it on the track, works perfect. It's great. It's no better product testing than dropping it off of a layout from a height of about 5.5 feet.
Well, that's some good news for the S-gauge guys for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you want me to give you the rundown of what's going to be in the 2015 C2 catalog?
Yeah, let's talk about that for about 10 minutes, and let's see how much trouble we both get in. I don't think you're going to have a job, and I don't think I'm going to have a podcast ever again after that.
No, we'll be fine. So are you ready?
Let's
you got
do
your
it.
pen out? I guess you're recording this. So 2015 C2 catalog, we're going to feature a lot of trains, and they're going to come with a not-so-revolutionary new technology called round wheels. Most likely, the locomotives will be equipped with either legacy or conventional control. Some might have Lion Chief. Some might even have Lion Chief Plus. I can most definitely tell you we're going to have some freight cars. There's going to be some awesome new accessories. That's pretty much sums up the 2015 C2 catalog. There might even be some verbiage in there not even related to trains.
Oh, and I tell you what, folks, you notice, and this is what I love. There has been, and some folks will never notice this, there has been a tightening of the screws, so to speak, at Lionel.
That was a nice way to put it.
Where it used to be, you would get the catalog chucked out, somebody would get a big mouth about 2 weeks out, and it just doesn't happen anymore. And you know what? For those of you out there, it keeps the surprises, and I think it makes the anticipation that much better. And so we'll wrap it up knowing that there are trains with round wheels and possibly legacy and other fun things coming. But I promise you guys, this fall catalog is going to be incredible. And we're just going to leave it there. Mike, it's been good to talk to you. It's great to talk to you, and I can't wait to talk to you this fall when we can start opening some pages up and really having some fun discussions.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Derek. Thanks for having us, and thank all your listeners for putting up with me.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Wednesday evening episode of Notch 6. If you guys aren't excited about the Volume 2 catalog yet, you guys should be. Sounds like that catalog is going to be hitting the streets sooner than the other Volume 2 catalogs. Exact dates haven't been determined yet, but you'll hear it first here on Notch 6, and of course we'll have the normal Lionel catalog show. If you like the show this evening, make sure you follow us on Facebook for all the latest news and updates. Also, remember to subscribe to our email list. That's you can do on notch6.com. We'll send out periodic updates from there as well. That'll wrap it up for Wednesday evening. We'll be back tomorrow night. Until then, keep it in Notch 6.
Thanks for listening to Notch 6, the only podcast dedicated to O-gauge trains. You can find every episode on our website, notch6.com, or on iTunes and Stitcher. We'll see you again soon. Until then, be sure to keep it in Notch 6. The following has been a production of Notch 6 Media and is intended for private use only. This show may not be copied or redistributed without express written consent. This show copyright 2015, all rights reserved.